Earth? Commander Kathar's voice dripped with disdain, his sharp mandibles clicking in annoyance. You expect us to conquer a world inhabited by fragile creatures like humans? They're barely out of their primitive age. His gleaming, black eyes narrowed as he stared down at Captain Mira, the human chosen to guide his elite alien team. She stood calm under his gaze, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Mira had seen his kind before. Aliens with advanced technology who underestimated Earth and her people. This wasn't the first time she had escorted a group of overconfident extraterrestrials into Earth's wilderness, and she doubted it would be the last. But Kathar's arrogance radiated more strongly than most. His squad of warriors, each from a different corner of the galaxy, mirrored his contempt as they towered over her. You've read the brief, Mira said, her voice steady. Earth is classified as a Level 8 HellWorld. This planet doesn't care how advanced your technology is. It's going to test you, and it won't stop until you either adapt or die. Kathar sneered, his forked tongue flicking in and out. Spare us the dramatics, human. We've conquered planets far more hostile than your backwater rock. What could Earth possibly throw at us that we cannot handle? The answer to that, Mira muttered, is everything. The challenge was simple. Kathar and his team had to survive for a week on Earth. No communication, no tech assistance, only their wits and basic tools. The Galactic Council had designed the exercise to humble those who thought themselves above survival skills. So far, Earth had humbled every group that tried. Mira intended to make sure it stayed that way. They descended from the spaceship into the thick, suffocating heat of a tropical jungle. The air was heavy, and the distant calls of unfamiliar creatures echoed through the canopy. The alien warriors glanced at one another, their body armor gleaming in the dappled light. Kathar scanned the surroundings with casual disinterest. These plants seem ordinary, he said, nudging a vibrant, flowered vine with his boot. Your threats are exaggerated. Mira smirked. That vine secretes a paralytic toxin. Touch it for more than a few seconds, and you won't be walking anywhere for hours. Kathar yanked his boot back instantly, his expression hardening as a ripple of nervous energy spread through his team. Mira had seen that look before, disdain slipping into uncertainty. This place is deceptive, she continued, striding ahead. The wildlife here doesn't care how advanced your ships are. It's you against the planet now. The group marched deeper into the jungle. The thick foliage pressed in around them, and the air was filled with the constant hum of unseen insects. One of Kathar's warriors, a lithe, forearm being named Rhazik, brushed against a cluster of hanging vines. Immediately, his skin began to blister. He snarled in pain, pulling away, but it was too late. Told you, Mira said without turning around. This planet's alive, and it doesn't like visitors. Kathar hissed something in his native tongue, a mix of clicking and growls, and ordered Rhazik to fall back for treatment. He strode forward to catch up with Mira, his tone sharper now. You seem to delight in our struggle, he said. Mira shrugged. I don't delight in anything, Commander. I'm just here to make sure you survive. But you've got to be smart enough to listen. The day dragged on, the jungle growing denser, the heat more oppressive. Sweat poured down Myra's back, but she was used to it. The aliens, though, were beginning to falter. They had dismissed her warnings, ignored her advice, and now they were paying the price. Their armor, designed for cosmic environments, trapped heat and weighed them down in the thick, humid air. Just as Mira predicted, the first scream pierced the jungle. A massive predator, its hide camouflaged among the trees, lunged at one of the warriors. The alien's cries were cut short as it was dragged into the undergrowth, vanishing without a trace. Kathar's eyes widened, and for the first time, Mira saw fear flicker across his face. The jungle had claimed its first victim, and they still had 6 more days to survive. I warned you, Mira said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of experience. Earth is no joke. If you want to make it out of here alive, you'll have to start trusting me. Kathar's claws flexed, tension rolling off him in waves. For a moment, the jungle was silent, as if waiting for his response. Finally, he nodded, though his pride remained intact, barely. "Lead the way, human," he growled, his tone bitter. "But do not think for a second we are afraid of this place." Mira smirked again, her eyes scanning the jungle ahead. "Oh, you will be." And with that, they continued deeper into the heart of the earth that was far deadlier than any of them could have imagined. Kathar's footsteps were heavier now, his pride bruised, his gaze scanning the dense foliage with newfound wariness. The jungle seemed to breathe around them, its presence palpable, watching, waiting. The disappearance of their comrade had shaken the squad, but the unspoken command from their leader forced them to press on. Yet, the alien warriors' earlier bravado had dimmed, their movements tense as they tried to adapt to their surroundings. Mira, walking ahead with confident strides, could feel the weight of their eyes on her. Despite their distrust, they had no choice but to follow. Kathar's earlier arrogance was replaced by a brooding silence, and though he hadn't admitted it outright, Mira knew he was finally beginning to grasp the deadly unpredictability of Earth. "So what's the plan, Commander?" Mira asked without turning, her voice calm yet pointed. Kathar hesitated before answering. His pride was still raw, and Mira's expertise, though invaluable, was a bitter pill to swallow. "We press on until nightfall. I will not let this jungle claim another of my warriors," he said, his tone harsh, like the scrape of metal against stone. "Nightfall," Mira repeated, glancing up at the dense canopy. "This jungle comes alive after dark. You think daytime is bad? Wait until the nocturnal predators start hunting." Kathar growled softly, his mandibles twitching. "We will make camp. Surely, even you humans have methods to survive the night in this forsaken place." Mira chuckled under her breath. "We do. But it's more about blending in with the environment than fighting it. Can your team manage that?" Kathar didn't answer, but Mira didn't need him to. She could already tell that the alien warriors had no intention of blending in. They were conquerors, after all, used to bending worlds to their will, not adapting to them. As the sun began to sink lower in the sky, the atmosphere changed. The distant calls of creatures became more frequent, and the undergrowth rustled with unseen movement. The shadows lengthened, and a cool, damp breeze began to stir the leaves overhead. The jungle, which had felt oppressive before, now seemed alive in a different way, its threats no longer hidden but inching closer. Mira motioned for the group to stop near a clearing, her instincts sharpening as night approached. "We set up camp here," she said. "Keep it minimal, no fires. The light will attract every predator within miles." Kathar's brow furrowed, but he didn't argue. His warriors, however, were restless, their body language betraying their frustration. They were creatures of combat, trained for warfare, not survival. As the aliens set about creating a makeshift perimeter, a soft buzzing noise grew louder. At first, it was barely noticeable, but within minutes it became deafening. A swarm of small, glowing insects, no bigger than a fingernail, descended on the camp. The warriors flailed, trying to swat them away, but the more they fought, the more the creatures clustered around them. "Stay still!" Mira shouted, knowing exactly what was coming next. "They're attracted to movement." Isaac, still nursing the burns from the earlier vine encounter, didn't listen. He swatted furiously, cursing in his native tongue. The swarm intensified around him, their glowing bodies flaring brightly as they latched onto his skin. His screams echoed through the jungle as his body convulsed, sparks crackling where the insects touched. "Stop moving!" Mira shouted again, rushing toward him. She yanked a cloak from her pack and threw it over his head, smothering the creatures beneath the fabric. The glow faded as the swarm dispersed, leaving Isaac panting on the ground, his skin dotted with burns. Kathar's fists clenched at his sides, fury radiating from him. "What kind of cursed planet is this?" he growled, his voice barely above a whisper. Mira crouched next to Isaac, checking his injuries. "I told you," she said, her voice low but firm. "Earth isn't like anywhere else. You have to stop thinking like conquerors and start thinking like survivors." Kathar knelt beside her, his gaze dark and searching. "And what would you have us do? We are warriors, not prey." Mira stood, meeting his gaze head-on. "You're both," she replied evenly. "Every creature on this planet is prey to something. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you'll make it through this." The jungle fell silent again, the swarm dissipated, but the tension in the air remained thick. The team huddled together, their earlier arrogance stripped away, replaced by the cold reality that Earth was no ordinary battleground. Kadar rose to his full height, his jaw tight. "Then teach us, human. Teach us how to survive this death world." Mira nodded, her expression hard. "That's the first smart thing you've said all day, Commander." And as the darkness fully settled over the jungle, the real battle for survival began. The night was thick, every sound amplified in the oppressive darkness. The air felt alive with a low hum, as if the jungle itself was waiting for something to unfold. Mira crouched near the edge of the camp, her eyes scanning the tree line. She could feel the alien warriors shifting uneasily behind her, their usual bravado dulled by exhaustion and the strangeness of the environment. Kadar stood motionless nearby, his large form outlined by the faint glow of the jungle's bioluminescent plants. His once proud posture was now tense, his eyes betraying a rare vulnerability. "Are we being watched?" Arachazek asked in a low growl, his voice wavering despite his best efforts to sound calm. Mira didn't answer immediately, her senses hyper-attuned to the jungle. The flickers of movement beyond the camp were growing more frequent, more deliberate. Something was out there. "Yes," she finally replied, her voice barely a whisper. "And it's getting closer." Kadar gripped his weapon tighter, his jaw clenched in frustration. "I've had enough of this," he muttered, his voice edged with fury. "We should hunt it down, confront whatever is stalking us." Mira shook her head, her eyes never leaving the shadows. "No. That's exactly what it wants. It's drawing you out, waiting for you to make the first move." Kadar's gaze snapped to her, confusion and anger flickering in his expression. "You speak as if this jungle has a mind of its own." "It does," Mira said simply, her tone firm. "This is a death world. Every creature here has adapted to survive in ways you can't even imagine. Some hunt with brute force, but others—" She paused, her eyes narrowing as she watched a branch sway in the distance. "Others use patience." A tense silence fell over the camp as the warriors exchanged uneasy glances. The weight of Myra's words hung in the air, sinking into them. The jungle wasn't just hostile, it was intelligent. Suddenly, a sharp, guttural scream pierced the air from the direction of the perimeter. One of the alien warriors, Drekthar, had vanished into the shadows, his cry cut short. The group tensed, weapons drawn, but Mira remained still, her hand raised in warning. "Don't move," she ordered, her voice like steel. "It's a trap." Kadar's eyes blazed with rage. "We can't just—" "You'll die if you chase him," Mira interrupted, her tone unwavering. "Drekthar is gone. Whatever took him is waiting for us to rush in." The jungle seemed to close in around them, the darkness thick and suffocating. Every instinct screamed at them to fight, to act, but Myra's calm presence kept them grounded. She had been through this before. "So, what's your plan?" Kadar spat, his voice a mix of desperation and resentment. Mira took a slow breath, eyes narrowing as she calculated their next move. "We wait. It expects us to react out of fear, to scatter. But if we stay together, keep our backs to each other, it'll lose its advantage." The alien warriors shifted uncomfortably, their instincts clashing with Myra's strategy. Kadar, torn between his warrior's pride and the cold logic of survival, hesitated. "Fine," he grunted, relenting with visible strain. "But we don't wait forever, human." The group formed a tight circle, their weapons raised, each alien's back protected by another. The jungle around them was eerily quiet now, as if it too was waiting, watching their every move. Minutes dragged into what felt like hours, the tension thick enough to choke on. Every rustle, every shift in the underbrush, sent a wave of anxiety through the group. Sweat trickled down Myra's neck, but her expression remained stoic. She knew what was out there: predators that thrived on fear, creatures that waited for the moment their prey let its guard down. Suddenly, a low growl rumbled from the darkness. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the air filled with an overpowering scent, something ancient, something hungry. "It's coming," Mara whispered, her grip tightening on her blade. Kathar's breath quickened, his eyes scanning the shadows frantically. "Then we fight." Before Mara could respond, a shadow lunged from the tree-line, faster than the eye could follow. Kathar swung his weapon with a roar, connecting with the creature in midair. The beast, a mass of sinew and teeth, shrieked as it was knocked back, but it wasn't alone. More movement erupted from the trees, and the jungle came alive with snarls and the hiss of deadly predators. Myra's heart raced, her mind calculating their chances. "Stay together!" she shouted over the chaos. "We can't let them divide us!" But the predators were relentless, their attacks coordinated, pushing the group toward the edge of the clearing. The rise in tension was palpable, the fight for survival reaching its peak. As the circle began to falter under the weight of the assault, Myra's voice cut through the frenzy, sharp and commanding. "Hold your ground! We make our stand here!" But deep down, she knew, this was only the beginning. The beasts attacked with a ferocity that shook the ground beneath their feet. Razor-sharp claws flashed in the moonlight as Mira spun her blade, slicing through the sinewy flesh of the first creature that lunged toward her. The alien warriors beside her roared in unison, swinging their weapons wildly, their movements fueled by desperation and adrenaline. "Hold the line!" Kathar's voice thundered above the chaos, but there was an edge to his command, a hint of uncertainty that hadn't been there before. The aliens were skilled fighters, but this was different. They were in unfamiliar territory, up against an enemy that had been stalking them for hours, watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Myra's breathing was ragged, her senses heightened as the predators circled, probing for weakness. Each time one lunged, she countered with lethal precision, her movements deliberate and controlled. She had fought on countless battlefields before, but none quite like this. The jungle was alive with the hum of unseen forces, and the enemy was cunning, coordinated. As another beast charged, its fangs bared, Mira sidestepped and drove her blade deep into its side. The creature let out a shriek, collapsing at her feet. She barely had time to catch her breath before another shadow lunged from the trees. "These things just keep coming," Arachazek snarled, his voice laced with frustration. "How many more are out there?" Mira didn't answer. She didn't need to. She could feel it, the oppressive presence in the air, the weight of the jungle pressing down on them. This wasn't a random attack. These creatures were part of the jungle's natural order, designed to cull the weak. It was a test, one they had to survive. Kathar slashed through another predator with a grunt, his powerful frame glistening with sweat. "We can't keep this up much longer, human," he spat, his voice strained as he parried another attack. "What's the plan?" Myra's mind raced, calculating their next move. "We can't outrun them, not in this terrain," she said between breaths, her eyes flicking toward the tree-line. "But we don't have to. If we can push them back, just far enough to break their formation, we might be able to create an opening." Kathar glared at her, but there was a flicker of hope in his eyes. "An opening for what?" Mira met his gaze, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "For us to disappear. We don't need to win this fight, Kathar. We just need to survive." The alien leader gritted his teeth, his pride warring with the cold logic of her plan. He hated retreating, hated the idea of running from a fight. But he knew she was right. They were outmatched, outnumbered. Victory wasn't possible, not here. "Fine," he growled, turning to the others. "We push them back. Hard. Make them think we're going all in, then fall back into the deeper jungle." The warriors nodded, their faces grim but resolute. Mira tightened her grip on her blade, her pulse quickening. This was it. The make-or-break moment. Either they would break free, or they would die here, consumed by the jungle. The creatures lunged again, a coordinated assault that sent shudders through the ground. Mira moved with them, her blade flashing as she carved through the onslaught. Kathar roared, cleaving through two of the beasts in a single swing, his strength bolstered by a desperate fury. Now! Mira shouted, her voice cutting through the cacophony. She and Katha broke formation, leading the charge deeper into the jungle, their movements quick and calculated. The alien warriors followed, their weapons swinging in wide arcs, pushing the creatures back with sheer force. For a moment, it seemed to work. The predators hesitated, thrown off by the sudden shift in tactics. The group pushed through, their feet pounding against the jungle floor as they raced toward the thicker underbrush. But just as hope began to rise, Mira felt it, a shift in the air, a tightening of the jungle's grip around them. The predators weren't retreating. They were regrouping, closing in for the final strike. Keep moving! Mira urged, her voice strained. We're almost there! But the jungle wasn't going to let them go that easily. A low growl echoed from the shadows, and suddenly, the ground gave way beneath them. Myra's heart lurched as she tumbled into the darkness, her body slamming against the earth. Kathar's voice rang out in the distance, but she couldn't make out his words. The jungle had swallowed them whole. As the dust settled and the predator's snarls faded into the background, Mira realized they weren't out of danger yet. They had fallen into a trap, one far deeper than she had anticipated. And now, there was no turning back.